Hello, my name is Chloe, welcome to my channel. Today I'm bringing to you the reading taste tag. So I was tagged in this video by Amelia over at Amelia Barlow Books. She is such a lovely person and a fantastic creator, so please do go check out her video, which I will link down in the description. I'm pretty sure she tagged me a very long time ago. I have not been in a tagging mood, really. So I put this one on the next available slot in my planner and I have basically left it till the last minute. I don't know what it is about tags, I have to really be in the mood. Let's just get started, shall we, because I will find a way to ramble at all times. So the first question is, describe your reading taste in one sentence. And I think I've got it perfectly. I've got a little bit of everything and a little bit weird. I think that pretty much sums it up. I don't think there's a genre I've never read a book from. There are definitely ones that I have more favourites than others, but I would say I read pretty broadly. So yeah, a little bit of everything, and we know that I like some weird stuff. I've got Chloe's Crime Scene Corner, where we read probably quite troubling crime stuff a lot of the time. I need something a bit messed up, and if you chuck a romance in there as well, I'm on it. So following on from that, number 2 is describe your reading taste with categories such as like genre, age, length, etc. And this is one that I was talking to the guys about last night, that I've said I will read any genre except from sci-fi unless the sci-fi is actually dystopian. I think that pretty much covers it. I'm more likely to read a romance or a light fantasy or a thriller. I'm also then throwing in a bit of non-fiction, but only if it's true crime. I don't really read sci-fi unless it's dystopia. I try to read fantasy, but I put it off a lot of the time. So I do read a little bit of everything. In terms of the age categories, I do mix that up a little bit too. I would say I mostly read adult, but in the new adult bracket. Let's say bottom end of adult, top end of YA is kind of where I'm at. I don't really read any middle grade, but I'm not against it. There are some fantastic middle grade books out there, and there are a few on my TBR. So I would say mostly bordering into adult. For age, length of a book genuinely doesn't bother me. If it sounds good, I'm going to invest the time in it. Another thing with my reading taste, because I thought aside from just genres, it's also about, is the book hyped, is it different, whatever. I do like to read a lot of backlist stuff, and it actually turns out that most of the time, if a book's getting really popular, I end up leaving it until it's a bit more obscure. For example, A Court of Silver Flames. Have I read this yet? No. Happy Place. Have I read this yet? No. Forever Interrupted. Have I read that yet? No. So I am definitely hauling books that are more hyped. They're more, you know, everywhere on the bookish internet. But when I am reading books, I do read things that are a little bit more obscure. For example, the most recent book I finished was The Possible by Tara Altebrando, which is a 2018 YA sci-fi-esque thriller. I really do read such a range. I think it's hard to put me in a genre. I do like your very hyped romances, of course I do, but by the time I get to them, no one's talking about them anymore anyway. So question number 3 is, show us a few books that represent your reading taste. And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got 6 books here. They're all from very different genres and I like them for very different reasons. So I'll do a quick fire. First up, I'm going to talk about Crave, which is a YA supernatural school with vampires and werewolves and magic and jokes about Twilight. Next up, It Ends With Us. I'm gonna say it, it really does encapture my reading taste. It's a romance with some darker elements. It feels very real. It's smutty to a level, but also thought-provoking to a level 2. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but I will stand by that book and how it made me feel. Next up, Carrie Soto Is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Yes, this is a book about tennis. No, I have no interest in tennis, but Taylor Jenkins Reid's writing is just fantastic. This is the sort of example of a contemporary fiction that isn't normally like the typical romance, but I got absolutely hooked and I loved it. A bit of an obscure one, we have Monsters by Emerald Fennell. This is a YA murder mystery thrillery with the main characters also being a bit fishy themselves. When I read this, I said it was the exact right level of messed up for me. It's really weird. makes you cringe. I wouldn't recommend it to everyone, but obscure, and I loved it. Then we couldn't do this without mentioning Den of Vipers. I branded a lot of my channel over that video where I read Den of Vipers years ago now. And although I can say this isn't a good book, I really enjoyed my time reading it. I enjoyed making content on it, so I guess that means it's part of my reading taste. And finally, you've got something like Stalking Jack the Ripper. This is a YA murder mystery with, I guess, bits of horror. We're following a girl who's trying to go her own way in society, break the rules of what women are allowed to do in history, and also we've got graphic bodily horror. We've got Jack the Ripper and uncovering the mystery of who it is. A historical retelling with graphic body horror and a little bit of a romance. I'm going to say Stalking Jack the Ripper kind of covers my reading taste in itself. I didn't actually give that book 5 stars, but that's beside the point. Okay, the next 2 questions I found very hard. So number 4 is a book that you didn't enjoy that seemed like it would be to your taste. And this is one I did find it hard because I tried to look at books I've just given 1 and 2 stars. I would say overall I'm quite good at getting that feeling about whether I'm going to love a book. So if this question was a book you thought was okay that you thought you'd love, like how many 3 stars I give out, we could be here forever trying to choose one. But a book that I actively didn't like is a bit harder. So I've gone for Cruel Summer by Juno Dawson. I read this a couple years ago now, maybe last year, and this is a YA murder mystery thriller with a group of teenagers who go on a bit of a holiday, and I'm sure someone dies and they have to figure out who killed them. Pretty much. It sounds really mean. I don't have much to say about this. I've read Juno Dawson before and enjoyed it. This one just didn't tick all the boxes, even though it should have. We've got classic contemporary tropes between teenagers, we've got a murder mystery, and we have death. So really, I should have loved it, but I didn't. So on the same vein, we have a book that you enjoyed that didn't seem like it would be to your taste. And again, this one's hard. I've gone for only 5-star books in this. Normally if I give a book 5 stars, I've probably been looking at it for a long time. I think I'm gonna love it and I'm just putting it off. So a book that I actually didn't think would be my vibe, but it definitely was Water for Elephants by Sarah Gruen. I really did enjoy this. I only got this because it was the book that the movie with Robert Pattinson was based on, and I absolutely love that movie. I read this, like here I've tried to go back to older books that I read as well, but I read this just to kind of tick off a prompt, I think, and I ended up absolutely loving it. It's historical fiction, pretty much. It's about the Great Depression and moving into a career such as the circus to escape poverty and to form a new life for yourself. Really not something I would say I'm interested in. I don't even really like the circus that much, but really did like this book, and I think reading this book made me open my reading taste a little bit more. So number 6 is show us some books on your TBR that seem like they will be exactly to your taste. I have gone with 4 books here. I've tried to go for ones that I hauled a little while ago and I'm just putting off and that are all a bit different. So first up we have Layla by Colleen Hoover. I have heard that it's not as good as Verity, which is one of my favourite books of all time, but that it's a romance with a paranormal-esque twist or a supernatural twist. I don't know too much about it. I've had it since it was released and haven't read it, but I've heard good things, and if it's anything like Verity, I'm gonna like it. Next up we have A Pound of Flesh, and this is a forbidden romance between a prison guard and a prisoner, or somebody who works in the prison and a prisoner, I'm sorry. I like a forbidden romance. I like some smut. Throw a prisoner on in there, maybe some dark crimes for us to talk about. I'm probably gonna love it. Next up I've gone for Hyde by Kirsten White, I think. And this is one that has awful reviews, but I got it when it came out. I was so excited, I pre-ordered it. This is some sort of survival story in an abandoned theme park, and I'm down for it. I've heard awful things. It's also very short. I feel like sometimes I love the books that everyone else hates, so I've got high hopes. And then next up I've gone for Love in the Time of Serial Killers by Alicia Thompson. I should have had these books in front of me. Again, this one is hyped. This is a bit of a TikTok hype, so I bought it a while ago and probably won't read it for a little while yet. This is following a girl who I believe is interested in true crime and like podcasts. She thinks the guy next door to her is a murderer or a serial killer, I'm not quite sure. And but ends up striking up a relationship with him. So we've got the romance, we've got the true crime, we've got the serial killer. I think it's going to be good. So this is the question I couldn't answer, and it is a booktuber you watch that has similar taste to you. My reading tastes are so obscure that every time I thought of someone, I was like, no, but they like this and I don't like that, or I like this and they don't like that, kind of thing. So I asked on the reading sprints who people watched that they would say sound like me. All of these people, I can think of reasons where we don't align. There are 3 people here, but there are definitely parts of our reading that overlap. So the first one is Rachel from Rachel Kerris. I would say her reading is more founded in contemporary fiction, and she is more brave on a literary fiction than I am. And then I would say that I read a lot more into fantasy, whereas she only likes a few fantasy series. There are definite similarities between our reading tastes. Definitely not between our reviews. Our reviews are always different, but our reading tastes in terms of the type of book and the storyline or whatever are kind of similar. But then she is more contemporary and I am a little bit more fantasy and horror. Next up, Becca from the Becca Fowl. We've got some similarities. Again, she's kind of coming into the romance reader, probably now to the level that I am, but wasn't as much before. And then she is definitely more fantasy than me, but there are some crossovers. And then the other suggestion was Sam from Griff Reads, and I agree with this one, but again, she reads more fantasy than I do, and definitely will get into deeper fantasies than I would. So there are some definite similarities, there really are, but not quite one I would say has the same tastes. If you have anyone that you think has the same taste as me, let me know, because I would love to check them out if I don't know them already. So the last proper question is, have you always had this taste in books, or has it changed over time? I would say that we can't know what was going to happen if I wasn't exposed to the Booktuber. Would I have always found it? Probably. But I was kind of reading before all of this. I was browsing the library, seeing what sounded good, just kind of picking anything up. And then when I found Booktube, so back in the end of 2017 through 2018, I was definitely picking up things that people were talking about then, a lot of contemporary, a lot of YA. And I would say around 2020, I got a little bit braver and started reading things I wouldn't usually. So things like Water for Elephants that I wouldn't typically read, but it just sounded a bit cool, and I gave it a go, found that I liked it, and I bought Ape House, which is another book by that author. Saying that, I haven't read it yet, but it has expanded my reading taste. I have found that I'm moving away from YA in terms of like an age rating. So back when I got into Booktube, I would say I was like a 90% YA reader. Now it's probably about 40%, maybe 50-50 with adult. I definitely have moved away from YA quite a lot. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm not saying I've grown out of it, but I have found that as I've become an adult, which is horrible to say because I don't want to think of myself like that, I can struggle a bit more to put myself in the situations of the main characters. I used to think, oh yeah, if I was at this school and I had this class and I liked this boy, I can't really do that anymore. And I feel like that detracts from my enjoyment of YA, so I've been staying away a little bit. I've been getting more into the adult books where someone has a job and has to cook dinner and boring adult stuff like that. So I definitely say the age group that I'm reading has changed quite a lot. Saying that, I have a lot of YA still on my shelves. I'm not thinking of getting rid of it. I'm still going to read through it. And if a new YA release comes out that I like the sound of, I will be grabbing it. But it's just not my #1 priority anymore. Okay, so finally I have to tag some people, and what I'm actually gonna do is just tag the guys that you said sounded similar to me, because I would like to hear about their reading tastes. So I'm tagging the lovely Rachel from Rachel Kerris, Becca from the Becca Fowl, and Sam from Griff Reads. I hope you guys do this tag, and just obviously let me know if you do. Sorry if you've already done it. I don't think you've done it. But if you have, if I'm too slow on this, then I apologise. But I would love to see what you think about your own reading tastes. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.